blasphemous against the gods, the sophists, and the epicures, the sense enjoyers of ancient Greece. So he was 70 years old, and he'd say all he had to say, and he was unafraid to, okay, I'll drink your hemlock. No problem. Socrates was unafraid. And then the fellow at Socrates' knee there, his leg, is saying, and we know all this because they took copious notes of what happened, one of his disciples. How shall we bury you? A tearful friend asked. Any way you like, Socrates replied. That is, if you can catch me, and I don't slip through your fingers. In other words, you can bury, you might bury the body, but you're not going to catch me. He knows that he's spirit inside the body. Srila Prabhupada appreciated that Socrates was fearless in the face of death because he knew he was imperishable spirit, not the perishable body. So fast forward, and that was like 399 BC or something. Now you fast forward 1,500 years, nearly, or more than that, nearly 2 millennia later, another now famous self appeared in Shakespeare's Hamlet. So this is all happening, Socrates, Shakespeare, it's all happening within the Kali Yuga. So Socrates was presenting a spiritual understanding of the self, however incomplete. He was perhaps Brahman realized, but he wasn't, supreme Brahman realized. Now you fast forward to Hamlet, and there's a line in there, quote, this above all, to thine own self be true. Polonius advised Laertes, but it was one's worldly interests, not the immortal soul, that Polonius had in mind, an earthbound self. So the concept of self, nearly 2,000 years later, has degraded from spirit to something mental, to thine own self be true, and an earthbound self. The downgrade continues today with, this is, I don't know if you have this, probably not in France, but it's when you go to the supermarkets and you go to the checkout lines to check out your groceries, there's a magazine on the racks, Self magazine. Do I have this in? Okay, it's called Self. But it's further, it's a bodily concept of self. Self magazine, for example, displaying well-toned bodies as the self. There's always an attractive lady, an attractive guy, and the lady showing off her body, and the guy showing off his muscles. Yet to think of the body as the self, to forever compete, to satisfy the body's demands, and then simply to die, is no better than polished animal life, Prabhupada would say. Our human capacity for higher consciousness should tell us something. We have a higher calling. We have the capacity for self-reflection and introspection and asking, who am I? Where are we? And all this stuff. Whereas when we're in animal bodies, we're simply absorbed in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So, where's my audience? There we go. Okay, Prabhu wanted to just read the first one there.
Why is it so difficult to know who we are and what our duty is?
Yeah. Okay, so the next section I call Mixed Up. In Vedic times, different classes of human beings were born and raised to cooperate. Let me just make sure. Were born and raised to cooperate, to serve the Supreme. That's in Vedic times. However, the concept of Supreme may have been Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan, or demigods, somebody higher. Lacking that spiritual focus, today's social classes often conflict. And today's individuals are too often conflicted. As Prabhupada told the World Health Organization in 1974, right in Geneva. Were you there? No? Okay. In 1974, such a population is called Varna Sankara, mixed population. In a word, okay. That's okay. I'm fine with it. Mixed population, Prabhupada said, Varna Sankara. In a word, mixed up. Small wonder that professions like life coaching and occupational therapy have become so popular. To understand who we are and what our duty is, we moderns, typically unconnected to a culture of self-realization, need help. In a spiritual society, first help our spiritual parents. So, we, I don't know if maybe it was just you and I speaking, but we're talking about how in former ages, demons are on different planets, demons and devotees, and then in the ages progress, they come on the same planet and then in the same country. And now they're in the same body. The demon and the devotee is at war inside us. So, and then the societies are very materialistic. So now what we're going to present through the rest of the lesson is what we really need, a spiritual society, and we need spiritual parents. And there we go. Boom. Where's the mic? You go to the ladies. First helpers.
First helpers, spiritual parents.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, keep reading.
According to Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 5th chapter, verse 18, we should not become a spiritual master, a father, a mother, or a worshipable demigod, unless we can deliver our dependence from the path of repeated birth and death.
Lecturing on that verse in Mayapur on February 26, 1976, Srila Prabhupada wryly remarked. Wryly, you know that word? W-R-Y. It means wittily in a dry, with a straight face. Quote, that is the real contraceptive method. Not IUDs and condoms. It's the real contraceptive method that we are married, undoubtedly, husband and wife, but unless we are competent to give protection, we should not beget children. By contrast, modern groups like the International Planned Parenthood Federation are committed to providing, quote, services like contraception and abortion. Quote, this is Kali Yuga, Prabhupada would observe. Oh, I told the story yesterday, yeah. Quote, even in the womb, they are coming after you with a knife. Prabhupada twisted his hand when he said it. Indeed, embracing a dark future, materialists killed the human opportunity to escape the nightmare of repeated birth and death. In a letter to a disciple who was a young mother, Prabhupada underscored the responsibility that comes with that opportunity. Okay, so, yeah. So, you want to read? A lady should read this. This is Prabhupada writing a god sister of mine.
These children are given to us by Krishna. They are Vaishnavas, and we must be very careful to protect them. These are not ordinary children, they are Vaikuntha children, and we are very fortunate we can give them a chance to advance further in Krishna consciousness. That is very great responsibility. Your duty is very clear.
Yeah, to Arundhati. Some context here, Arundhati had written Prabhupada. she had a little child named Pradyumna. Pradyumna was her husband. Pradyumna is Prabhu, the Sanskrit editor. She was his wife, and then they had, the child's name was Aniruddha, that's right. Pradyumna Aniruddha. So, so he was only about a year and a half old. And so Arundhati, she wanted to worship the deity more. She was really attracted to deity worship. So she wrote Prabhupada, she said, is it okay if, because Pradyumna was with Prabhupada, child with Prabhupada. So there was no, if she did more deity worship, if she did deity worship, then who was going to watch the child, right? So she wrote Prabhupada and said, would it be okay if I give Aniruddha to some friends to look after him, while I do deity worship? And so Prabhupada was astonished that she even asked the question. He said, look, don't even think, it's like we say in English, don't even think it. Don't even think it. Because for you, in your situation, child worship is your deity worship. Your deity is the child. You're the mother, and you should be very attentive. He's just a little baby, practically, a toddler. So that's why Prabhupada said your duty is very clear. And then Prabhupada said something very heavy. And if you think you cannot take care of him like this, then send him to me, and I will take care of him. It's like, so it really took Arundhati's breath away, okay, I get it, But that's where the phrase Vaikuntha children comes from. You might have seen Urmila, my god sister, wrote a book called Vaikuntha Children, and this is where it came from, this letter. So the first thing we need is good parents, spiritual parents who have our spiritual welfare and material welfare at utmost in mind. Next section is called spiritual teachers. Spiritually minded parents naturally want their children educated by spiritually minded teachers. Such a partnership helps children grow up to be all they can be in devotional service. But knowing what's best for a child takes time and perseverance, even for great teachers. Consider Dhruva Maharaja's talks with the great teacher, Narada Muni. So we're going to go into Dhruva over here. Yeah. Okay. You can pass the mic. Over here. Thank you. Let me see if this is... Okay, just give the title. Go ahead.
Second helpers, spiritual teachers.
Yeah. From saints to serpents. Narada Muni has all kinds of disciples. He had a snake as a disciple. And he also had saints as disciples. Right? From saints to serpents, sage Narada engages all kinds of embodied beings in devotional service. Yet few have been as precocious as 5-year-old Prince Dhruva. Forbidden by his spiteful stepmother to sit on the lap of his father, King Uttanapad, Dhruva angrily approached his natural mother for help to avenge the insult. Convinced that no one but the Supreme Lord could pacify her son, Dhruva's mother inspired the boy to seek God in the forest. And you might remember Suniti said, well, it's true what Suruchi said. Suruchi insulted, unless and until you take birth from my womb, she was the favorite queen. You cannot sit on the king's lap. So that was whoa. Dhruva was, even though he was only 5, his blood was boiling, nobody can insult me. So he goes to his mother, furious, crying, Mata, Suruchi said this. So Suniti said, well, it's true, Dhruva, I'm not the favorite queen, but, I don't think, so I can't really help you, but no one can help you but God. And the sadhus say that they find God in the forest. So, and she didn't mean that he should just go off to the forest, But that's how he took it, and he just went off to the forest. Meeting Dhruva, so then who does he meet? But Narada Muni. Meeting Dhruva in the wilderness, Narada Muni advised him to go back to his mother and return when he was grown up. In the meantime, Dhruva should live undisturbed and satisfied with his lot, his fate, as ordained by Providence. Sage advice, wise words, acknowledged Dhruva, but because I am covered with ignorance, because, quote, I am covered by ignorance, this kind of philosophy does not touch my heart. So Dhruva said, look, this is very nice advice for a well-behaved, patient, peaceful, tolerant Brahmin boy. I'm not a Brahmin, I'm a Kshatriya. I've been insulted. Whatever it takes, bring it on. Tell me what I have to do to see God. Now this is such a yuga, the process for self-realization is Ashtanga yoga, mystic yoga, takes thousands of years to perfect. Took Dhruva 6 months. He was on the fast track, right? So, in his commentary to Bhagavatam 4.8.36, where Dhruva said, I'm covered by ignorance, this kind of philosophy does not touch my heart. Prabhupada writes, okay, finally.
Dhruva Maharaj indirectly informed the great sage Narada that there are 4 kinds of human spirit: Brahminical spirit, Kshatriya spirit, Vaishya spirit, and Shudra spirit. Unless a child is trained according to his tendency, there is no possibility of his developing his particular spirit. It was the duty of the spiritual master or teacher to observe the psychological movement of a particular boy and thus train him in a particular occupational duty. Srimad Bhagavatam 4.8.36 purport.
This is one of the few times, I think I've only seen it one other time myself, where Prabhupada uses the word spirit to refer to psychophysical nature. Yeah. But it's so important that Prabhupada used that term. There's 4 kinds of spirits. The Brahminical, the martial spirit, the spirit for wealth producing and for working, a skilled laborer. As we saw in the last lesson, the longer Srila Prabhupada expanded the Hare Krishna movement, the more he took a varnashram approach to engaging in his followers in devotional service. Remember that for the first 7 years, 66 to 73, forget varnashram. This is not, you can't just chant Hare Krishna, have festivals, study the Shastra, practice sadhana, and go back to God. And then he started to extend the mercy to the whole world and say, look, these people are in chaos. We have to organize ourselves along varnashram lines so we can show a better way to live. We don't need it, Prabhupada was saying, but they need it, so we have to have these varnashram villages. But then by the end, he was saying, you need it. His own disciples, you're not making it. You're leaving, my trusted leaders are going away, because they needed to be engaged more according to their natures. Whereas surrender to Krishna in ISKCON's early days often meant sacrificing one's natural propensities for the sake of quickly spreading the movement. To make his mission sustainable over time, Prabhupada later sounded more like that Dhruva purport, highlighting the need to serve according to one's natural work. Okay, so next. Okay, Hiroshi, you ready? Here we go. Yeah, there you go.
The spiritual master will say that you work like this, that is natural. Just like in the school, college, somebody is being trained up as a scientist, somebody is trained up as an engineer, as a medical man, as a lawyer. According to the tendency, practical psychology of the student, he is advised that you take this line. So, by the instruction of the Guru, the real purpose of is Krishna consciousness, and according to his Buddha, quality, and karma, work, is engaged in a particular occupational duty.
So you see, that's a lecture Prabhupada gave in Vrindavan in '76, and he was more focused on Varnashram. So yeah, it's our way. It's like Prabhupada would say, Arjuna's his way back to Godhead. Of course, he's always with Krishna, but as an example for us, his occupation was a warrior, so he had to kill. You know, that was his. He had to do his duty. He didn't want to. In the beginning, he didn't want to do it. He didn't want to fight. So Krishna said, "No, that's the part you have to play." Here. So we all have our natures, and by engaging in nature, what is that? 18th chapter. By following one's qualities of work, one becomes perfect. Now here, how this can be done. 1845, 46. By worship of the Lord, who is all pervading, a person can attain perfection by performing his own duty, his own swakarma. Yeah. Okay, so we need good parents, we need good teachers, and then key persons in helping us advance further are spiritual masters. We're going to have an audio here too, so it comes out of here. So good. So the next section is called Selecting Spiritual Masters. So this is very important too. In addition to the library of foundational spiritual literature, Srila Prabhupada left all generations of his followers. He also left a vast treasure of recorded instructions, which nicely complement his books. So we not only have the challenge of reading and understanding Prabhupada's books, but Prabhupada insisted, even in the Bowery, even when he was alone. Did anybody know the first recording they had of Prabhupada?
Introduction to Bhagavad Gita.
That's right. And he was all alone. He was just by himself in this windowless room in the Bowery. And you hear, it's February 19th, 1966. It's so dramatic. The first thing you hear is Om Prabhupada's reciting the Acarya. And then he starts reading his introduction to the Gita. It's like the primeval sounds of the universe or something, Prabhupada dictating. So, and the spoken word, Prabhupada gets an opportunity to, you just read that quote, Devarshi, he's lecturing on the Bhagavatam 1:7:36-37. So he gets to say a lot more in the spoken word than he had room to do in the purport. The purport's a concise, commentary on the verse, or sometimes multi-page purports, depending on how much Prabhupada wanted to spend. But in the course of the lectures, and the room conversations and the morning walks and the public addresses and the arrival, there's so many contexts. You get a real full Prabhupada body, you get the spoken body and the written body, and they complement each other. Okay. All right. He also left a vast treasure of recorded instructions, which nicely complement his books. I know in other languages, like when I went to Russia, the Russian devotees said, yes, we have devotees who are translating the spoken word too. I don't know, has anybody done that in French? Nobody's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Srila Prabhupada. He translated his lectures.
Sundar Gopal.
Yeah, some of his lectures.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's at least a transcription.
I think he recorded, he just spoke it into my.
He spoke it. Okay. Okay. So you have. Yeah. Okay. That's good. In his Bhagavad Gita as it is, so the spoken word complements the written word. In his Bhagavad Gita as it is, for example, Lord Krishna enjoins us to, quote, learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master through service and submissive inquiry. In a Gita lecture in Miami, Prabhupada said that the guru should also test the inspiring disciple. So yeah, in the Gita, Krishna says, don't just, he didn't say try to learn the truth by trying to approach me directly. He says try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. And now we're going to hear Prabhupada. This is an audio. Let's see. There we go. Now the picture doesn't match the audio. Prabhupada, I heard Prabhupada say this. I happened to be in Miami in February '75. But there's where Prabhupada is there. He's in his rooms in LA, which are still to this day kept very nicely, just like you very nicely keep Prabhupada's rooms here. Big suite of rooms Prabhupada had in LA. So he's walking and chanting. So what you're going to hear is Prabhupada in Miami, his one and only visit, February '75. And the audio isn't the best quality because while Prabhupada's saying the words, you hear a plane flying overhead to Miami International Airport, and it's a little, obscuring the sound. But you'll see the words too. Okay, here we go.
Therefore, nobody should accept blindly any guru, and nobody should blindly accept any reason. They must behave one another at least for 1 year. This is the instruction by Sanatana Goswami in Hari Bhakti Vilas.
Okay, there's one word in there Prabhupada used that it wasn't quite a little used. What word do you see that you kind of scratch your head?
Behave.
Behave, yeah. What did Prabhupada mean by behave?
Know each other.
Yes, mutually examine each other. So, even before the mutual examination begins, it is essential for senior devotees to ground a newcomer in our founder Acharya's life, teachings, mood, and mission. So if somebody were to walk into Mayapur today for the first time and eager to know what's going on, so it's our duty as devotees to first of all ground the newcomer in the foundational spiritual master of everyone, the founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada. And then, introduce them once they're thoroughly grounded in their foundational teacher, then we can start talking about, okay, been here for a while, Prabhu, we think you might like to commit to this process. Would you like to take initiation someday? Then, then you can start checking out initiating gurus. When Prabhupada was traveling as the movement's sole initiator, again, Prabhupada didn't have an opportunity to model this because he was always moving, although we were all in touch with his, he was the only guru, right? So we were reading his books as they were coming out, listening to the recordings. Prabhupada depended on his local leaders to train and test would-be initiates. In ISKCON's multiple guru culture today, only a trained aspirant, somebody who's been educated properly since he or she has walked in the door, only a trained aspirant will be able to approach initiation with a level head. Quote, who will best guide and engage me in Srila Prabhupada's mission? Initiation, of course, is only the beginning. The road to finding our ultimate calling, our mission in his mission, inevitably passes through crossroads of purification and consultation. So I adapted something from Shiva Maharaj's book, Varnashram Compendium. Chapter 30, it's called something, what's it called? Finding your Varna, something like that. So he gives some evidences of how to do that from Shastra. So let's see here. Okay. I chose a waterfall with this. Finding our mission requires purification, because water naturally seeks its own level, as they say. So we also naturally, eventually, come back to our nature, our spirit. The Prabhupada said it's a spirit, and we have to find that with the help of devotees. Okay, let's see. This is okay. We're not ready. In his Sri Krishna Samhita, this is by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur observes that before settling our varna, our occupational duty, we must first purify our nature. Reflecting on the Thakur's observation, His Holiness Shivaram Swami points out in his Varnashram Compendium, Volume 1, Chapter 30, determining one's varna, that by seriously and sincerely following the devotional life Srila Prabhupada has given us, we can purify our nature in 3 ways. So let's look at what Maharaj says. There's 3 ways that just by following Prabhupada's program for purification. Okay, so who's got the mic? Okay.
By rites of passage.
Rites of passage. For example, qualifying oneself to receive first and second initiation, and committing oneself either to the path of celibacy or responsible married life. Yeah. So that takes some doing. Most people won't skip that second stage of life. The grihastha ashram. So even when they're being trained, say as brahmachari, or Prabhupada also created the brahmacharini ashram. I don't know if it's existing anywhere in ISKCON anymore, but even the brahmachari ashram is becoming like an endangered species. Yeah, but Prabhupada like that. So that when you say brahmachari is trained, so a good trainer will not only give them brahmachari training, but will also make the brahmacharis aware of if you young men should decide at some point that you want to go to the grihastha ashram, here's what that's all about. Here's the duties and responsibilities of grihasthas, and this helps people make up their minds. Do I want to do that, or do I want to stay, simple brahmachari? So it's important that people be made aware of it. Otherwise, they might think, okay, maybe I just want an association of a woman. But look, there's a lot that goes with that package. How are you going to support the lady? How are you going to support your kids? And where are you going to live? You can't expect the temple to support you anymore, because you're living on your own. You're independent household, or independent economically. We're always dependent, but you have to have your own scene. Okay, so one way is by rites of passage. Second item in purification is
By education
and training. Immersing oneself in and allowing oneself to be transformed by systematic scriptural study. I made it wrong. Before I said, did I say Bhakti Shastra? I should have said qualifying oneself for first and second initiation. Yeah, that's the basic training in the ashram. So here we have education and training. Immersing oneself in and allowing oneself to be transformed by systematic scriptural study, such as a Bhakti Shastra degree program, and readily accepting counselor supervision. So, anybody ever go to any of these courses like VIAT or MI? Yeah. So it's no joke. I mean, you got to really absorb yourself. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of application, and in the association of devotees in the Holy Land, it's an opportunity to actually become transformed. Yeah. And readily accepting counselor supervision. So that's something too. That accepting the authority, the advice of Shiksha Gurus. All right, another one.
By devotional practice.
Devotional practices. Here's where Maharaj said, by regularly, these are my words, but this is what I took away from what he wrote. Regularly participating in Prabhupada's full morning program, either at a temple or in one's own home. Prabhupada's morning program includes the 5 most purifying devotional practices given in the Nectar of Devotion. Oh, we mentioned these yesterday. Chanting Hare Krishna, worshipping the deities, associating with devotees, living in a sacred place, and studying Srila Bhagavatam. Along with purifying our nature to discover our mission in Srila Prabhupada's mission, we need to consult with senior devotees who know us well. So there's purification and consultation. And now there's purification, now we move to consultation. All right. It takes a village. Africans say, it takes a village to raise a child. So if that's true, it takes a whole community of devotees to raise a sadhaka. No person is an island. We're social beings and we need examples, we need support, we need good guidance. If, quote, it takes a village to raise a child, it certainly takes a healthy spiritual community to raise a lifelong devotee. In his conclusion to Sri Krishna Samhita, Srila Bhaktivinoda mentions different kinds of consultation required to settle our varna, our vocation, our calling in life. So this is very interesting. Let's go to the next. Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
And in our mission, we pray consultation with trusted seniors who know us well.
Yeah, trusted seniors who know us well. Well, first of all, we need trusted seniors to be around. And then, but how are they going to know us well unless we stick in a place? We have this phenomenon of devotee tourists. We just sort of, like butterflies, we kind of like flit here and there, and no one really gets to know us because we're just always on the move. Prabhupada called it wanderlust. Yeah, we need to commit, we need to stick somewhere. And sometimes it does take a while to know where we belong. Just like, I think I might have mentioned, after 5 years in the movement, I joined in July 70. Well, by 75, I knew that I really belonged not so much distributing the books, I belonged working on the books. So then I hitchhiked to the DVT because that's how we got around. There were no money for airplanes in those days. So I just stuck out my thumb and I hitchhiked all the way from Florida and the southeast US, all the way over to the west coast, thousands of miles. It took me a while to get there. And the DVT manager gave me a test. He said, okay, we'll try out. It looks like you got potential here, kid. Prabhu. Kid Prabhu. So I became the proofreader, or the indexer. I was trained by the late, great Akshobhya Prabhu, who organized all the indexing in ISKCON. This guy was brilliant. He could recite whole passages of the Krishna book. I know Prabhupada Swami can do this too. And he just had a mind, for thinking of all the ways people, if you read something, how they're going to try to look it up, So that's one job of the indexer. You have to make multiple entries for the same thing. You have to, So anyway, and I became peaceful. distribution, even though I could do it, I wasn't, well, to be fair, it wasn't the book distribution, there was nothing wrong with that, that's what we need. But there was an emphasis, the emphasis in 75 was slowly switching from quantity of books to quantity of money. And I hated that because, we were instructed, okay, now you gotta try to get as much money as you can from the people. And the people could sense that I was squeezing them for money. Oh. So I said, okay, I'm out of here. I've had it with this stuff. Book distribution, key jive, but don't ask me to be a big squeezer. So anyway, so I became very peaceful and happy. What do you know? You can be happy and peaceful in Krishna consciousness. What a concept. Okay, so, so let's go to counsel. Okay, so this is what, so the first consultation we need is trusted seniors who know us well. And it takes a while for the seniors to get to know you. Let's see, where it is. Yes. Okay, over time. Okay, let's look at the next one. It's rather mysterious. Go ahead.
With qualified seals of our past, present, and future.
Oh, what is that? That sounds very mystical. We need to consult with qualified seers of our past, present, and future? Well, here, believe it or not, here's what Prabhupada meant. He meant qualified Vaishnava astrologers, like Gaura-mandala Prabhu. I mean, there's so many, astrology is big business, as you know, even in Vedic circles. But the astrologers, most astrology, the kind of astrology you find in the newspapers in the world, Paris, or the New York Times. It's pop astrology, and it's got nothing to do. And those astrologers, they're just like everybody else. The goal of life is sense gratification. So you don't need an astrologer who's going to, advise you how to get sense gratification. You don't need that. Qualified astrologers who can help guide us to the supreme destination. In this purport to Srimad Bhagavatam 10.85, Srila Prabhupada states, Prabhupada said a lot of things about astrology, but in this purport, he says, quote, "It is the duty of a father to understand the astrological position of his children and do what is needed for their happiness." So that's simply a father, just like when Krishna was born, Garga Muni made his horoscope, identifying Krishna and Balaram. So at least in general, it would behoove the parents to know what kind of spirit this child has. So Prabhupada said that. Is it the duty of a father to understand the astrological position of his children and do what is needed for their happiness? Not that they're always consulting astrologers to know if I should go outside today or if it's, some people, they don't do anything unless they look at their chart, and that's too much. When a qualified astrologer confirms in our stars what our seniors observe about us on the ground, as above, so below, as the saying goes, that helps us to confidently settle our occupational duty. It helps us. It's helpful to have these things confirmed. Our varna, our mission in the mission. And here's another thing that's helpful to consult. Go ahead.
With teachers in Varnashram College.
Yeah, and when Prabhupada talked about Varnashram College, which we mentioned yesterday, he said Gurukula up to the age of 10 or 12, 10 to 12. And then when puberty starts coming on, the body starts changing in girls and boys, direct a person toward the nature they're observing. Okay, this kind of course would be interesting for you, and maybe you can pursue it and make a devotional career out of it. As we learned in lesson 6, Srila Prabhupada assigned a crucial role to Varnashram college teachers for the re-spiritualization of human society. And here's another quote from the morning walk, March 74 in Vrindavan. Everywhere, wherever we have got our center, our Varnashram college should be established to train 4 divisions. 1 class Brahmin, 1 class Kshatriya, 1 class Vaishya, 1 class Shudra, because they're all needed. Even in Daivi Varnashram, everybody's needed. And most people will be in Shudra Varna, because Shudra will be assistants, assisting the higher classes. They're going to do the work. But everyone will be elevated to the spiritual platform by the spiritual activities we have prescribed. In that Varnashram Valentine, February 14, 1977, we looked at yesterday, Prabhupada said, Harishari said to Prabhupada, but Prabhupada, most people after a year they're initiated, and after another 6 months, they take Brahma initiation. Prabhupada said, no need. No need. If they're not attracted to deity worship or qualified to do that, let it remain Shudra. He meant let it remain in that Varna, and by becoming a Shudra and Vaishnava Varna, he can go back to Godhead. He can plow the field and go back to Godhead. I have godbrothers. One is now approved to initiate. He's just not a reader. As soon as he sits down not to read, he just drops right off, goes to sleep, right? So, but he's always hearing. He's hearing Prabhupada's spoken word. Whether he's a woodworker, or he's like I asked when we drove in. Remember when you're the one that said to me, "Oh, that's Govinda. He can do anything." So this godbrother's name is Vatsal Prabhu, initiated by Prabhupada in 72. So Vatsal's like that. He can just do anything with his hands. He can make something, figure out something. He's brilliant. So, but he just can't. He can't read books, but he can hear. He can hear the books through Prabhupada's talks, which are very often an expansion of the books. So he's qualified. He's totally Krishna conscious and grounded in the philosophy just by hearing, not by trying to read. You can't do that. So that's fine. Let's see. But everyone, Prabhupada says, 1 class, all the varnas. But everyone will be elevated to the spiritual platform by the spiritual activities we have prescribed. So sadhana, so Vatsala dutifully chants his rounds, And, we have deity worship. I just visited him, he's in Texas, he's in the community in Texas. And So, okay. So by doing the duties of our Varna as devotional service, while following the instructions of our spiritual masters, Diksha and Shiksha, we transcend our conditioning in stages or ashrams. Student, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, sannyas. It takes time to mature through the stages of life. If somebody told me when I was a young brahmachari, in let's see, where was I? In Gainesville or Pittsburgh or wherever I was, that the day would come when I'd be traveling the world teaching Pandavacharya seminars. I was going, huh? But so what happened? Somehow Krishna and Prabhupada led me to this point. Okay. By doing the duties of our varna as devotional service while following the instructions of our spiritual masters, we transcend our conditioning in stages or ashrams and ultimately go back to Godhead. And even if we haven't had the benefit of growing up and living in a varnashram culture, we're all hearing this, right? We're thinking, well, gee, I didn't have, or maybe some of you did. You had first Kandarga, but she had devotee parents. I certainly didn't. I was eating meat in the womb and drinking alcohol in the womb, you know. My mother was smoking. I didn't have that background. To find our mission in Srila Prabhupada's mission, we can always ask ourselves a few challenging questions. So I took this next slide from the self-help community. Tony Robbins, there's all kinds of self-help gurus out there, right? And they talk about finding your passion. Of course, they mean finding your passion for sense gratification. So you can enjoy this life, do it, or even like Henry Ford said, Ambarish's great-grandfather, his grandfather said, Henry Ford said, find something you love to do, and you'll never have to work a day in your life. Because you love what you're doing. It won't be like work. It'll be a labor of love. All right, here we go. We can always ask ourselves a few challenging questions. Oh, I'm sorry. I read that. I should have let you read it. And now, there's a male and a female. So anybody, male or female, you can ask yourself these questions. All right, so who's going to read this? Gopal Prabhu.
If I had all the money I needed, what would I do?
Everybody's chasing the buck, chasing the euro. We have the dollar, a buck. Yeah, because we think usually people have aspirations or avocations or aspirations, and then they have vocations. Most people, I don't know how it is in Europe, but most people don't like their work. Is that true? Good to hear it.
Very few people like their work.
Very few people,
Yeah,
okay,
confirmed.
maybe it's like that in Germany.
It's like that here also.
Is that okay? They just do it to pay the bills. Something that I kind of fell into, conveniently. Oh, so if money was no obstacle, if you had all the money you wanted, what would I do? Oh, then okay, I gotta think about that. Here's another one.
If I had all the time I needed, what would I do?
That's another one. Time, right? Time and money. Oh yeah, I could maybe go back to school but I have no time. I gotta run the race. I don't have time. I don't have the money. I don't have the time. What would I do? Okay, but say you had all the money and you had all the time. Still, there's something else. And we can ask ourselves as devotees. And the more specifically you can answer this third question, the more you can actually, in an honest way. You have to be very honest. What is it Prabhupada said in the third canto? A devotee is as thoughtful as a non-devotee is speculative. You have to be thoughtful in terms of, the Shastra. We think we're being informed by Guru Sada Shastra. And non-devotees are just imagining so many things. Okay, so here's the third one.
To what specific service am I most drawn and forget time doing it? Prasadam.
Prasada Seva, I have to admit. Yeah, my legendary godbrother Vishnu John Swami once asked Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, can we just take prasadam all day? So Prabhupada said, yes, but you have to, as long as you chant Hare Krishna after every bite. You're going to do that, then you gotta chant Hare Krishna. Okay, so, it's not actually it's not common, because we're a mixed bag of tricks in Kali Yuga. We have the demon and the devotee at war, and the modes are all mixed up in Kali Yuga. It's not so common, although it is there too, but it's not common that people practically out of the, from the time they're toddlers, they know what they want to be. Like, we have this lady in America just won the gold again in Paris, Simone Biles, the gymnast, African American lady. Anyway, she was just, so, she's won the gold now in 3 straight 2016. And then in Tokyo, she withdrew because she was having mental issues. She couldn't, it required so much concentration, so she dropped out. She didn't win the gold. Then she came back, and then she won it again. So her mother, they asked Simone Biles' mother, when did you know Simone was going to be a judge? Well, I knew it because, she was always wrecking all the furniture. She was always jumping on all the furniture. And when I couldn't stop her, I said, okay, we got to get this kid in a class. We're going to engage this instead of saying, you can't do this. She had the sense to say, well, okay, we're going to, and then it just kept going. She just kept getting better and better. Or like in America, we have basketball leagues for women too, not just men. Don't just have the NBA. We have this French guy. What's his name? Raven. He's 7'5" or something. He's like so huge.
Wanyayama.
Yeah.
Wanyayama.
Yeah. Right. So, but in America they also have the WNBA, the Women's National. So we have this lady. She's a rookie now. She just graduated from college. Her name is Caitlin Clark, and she is amazing. Whew. You ought to see this lady play basketball. It's just incredible. She broke all the records in the National Collegiate Athletic Association, NCAA, for the most points scored by any collegian in what they call Division I, the highest level of play. She even beat the former person who held the record, the man, Pete Maravich. She blew past him, And now she's breaking all rookie records, in the WNBA. So, they asked her parents when, Caitlin was going to be like this phenomenon. Oh, she was always like this. She was always, playing basketball when she was a little girl, and she has an older brother and a younger brother. She's in the middle. So she insisted on playing with the boys too. And then the boys couldn't guard her. She was shooting over the boys. They got frustrated. Anyway, so some people are like that, but most of us, it takes us, because we're such a mixed bag. So we can meditate. So to what specific service am I most drawn? So all of us in the room now, we're adults, and we know what our favorite service is. Like in the Gita 2:48, you have a right to 2:47. You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you're not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself to be the doer, the owner. Never consider yourself to be the results of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty. So in the purport, Prabhupada talks about 3 kinds of duties. There's routine work, something we all have to do. We all have to brush our teeth. We all have to, help out, especially here when you have so few people, work to keep the place together. So routine work, emergency work. Say there was a fire. Once there was a fire in LA, in New Dwarka. There was a fire. what happened was a gas main blew on Venice Boulevard, and yeah, it wasn't the fire, that was, yeah, the gas main blew, and there was a fire down the street. And so we had to evacuate, and we needed Workadish out of the temple. We had to take them down, and we had to evacuate the whole BBT files and everything down the street, away from the danger. So there were 400 devotees in New Dwarka. This is 1976. You wouldn't believe how everybody cooperated. So fast. We didn't have to speak. We just have, okay, do this, carry the DVDs and get the files, and everybody had to evacuate their apartments. If you were close to the, where Venice and Watsika came together. Yeah, so that's an emergency, and everybody has to come together. And then, Prabhupada said, and then there's desired activities. There's stuff we just like to do because it's our nature. So when you think about, what's your mission in the mission, then you can just think about what specific service am I most drawn, and forget time doing it. Of course, if you like, dressing the deities the best, then you better be conscious of time. That's an exception to that. But you know what I mean? It's just so you. It's like you're in a trance doing it. Yeah. What is it with me? What is it with me? I think writing. I just like writing the most. Does anybody else would like to offer what they like to do the most? You're in the zone. They talk about being in the zone. Yes? You like? Favorite?
I like many things, but I think that we don't find out what we like to do because we don't want to do our duty. I think that's one big reason. Am I right or wrong? Many people,
they're Judas, probably.
Many people, they have a certain nature, but they want to think that they're Brahmana or something like that, so they can escape their work.
That's
my observation.
That's a leftover from Brahman only ISKCON, where Prabhupada's trying to put a head back on society. Yeah, everybody's thinking thinking of varnashram in terms of caste, higher and lower. Like Prabhupada would say, if I cut my foot, Prabhupada would say, and it needs attention, I'm going to marshal all the intelligence I can to get that foot fixed ASAP, as soon as possible. If I neglect it, it's just out of foolishness, thinking, oh, it's just the foot, it's the Shudra part of my body. If I disdain my foot because it's Shudra, then it's going to get infected, and then who knows, if I really neglect it, and then I might have to get amputated, so it doesn't affect the rest of the body. So that's foolish, because I need that foot to carry me to where I want to go. So all, in Vaida Varnashram, all the parts of the body are much appreciated, because we're all necessary servants of the Supreme. We need, priests and teachers, we need soldiers and statesmen, or administrators. We need people who are good at managing. We need people who are wealth producers, the Vaishya community. And we need people who are skilled to assist all the others in making everything else happen. So this comes from a materialistic understanding of Varnashram. Everybody wants to claim I'm the Brahmin, I'm the head. But the Brahmins, they advise, they don't execute, usually. In classic Vedic Varnashram, they're the advisors to the kings. In third canto, Prabhupada talks of the sweet relation between, it's called Bhakti Acarya, between the Brahmins and the Kshatriyas. There's no, in Daily Varnashram, they don't compete, but they actually, they complement each other. The Brahmins keep the Kshatriyas' power in check through their sage counsel. If somebody has Kshatriya nature, then they're capable of power, heroism, power, determination, and resourcefulness, and courage in battle are the qualities that work for the Kshatriyas. But that power, if unchecked, it leads to, they can become tyrants. Or it's my way or the highway, with somebody in charge of the temple, thinks they can just kick people out. No. Yes.
The first one, with the money,
Yeah.
it depends which person you ask.
If I had all the money I needed, what would I do? Oh, sure.
If you ask a Vaishya, he will say, I would make more money.
Make more money. Right.
A Shudra, he has to come back for more money. If you give him 10,000 euros,
He'll spend it.
he will come back for more.
Yeah.
But the Vaishya, he will make more money out of that.
That's right.
Just to answer the question.
That's true. That's true. But this is the context here, is just trying to determine, what to do. Because usually we use those as excuses of why I can't pursue my nature. Okay, let's go to the last conclusion. The answer to any of the above questions that we're looking at may give us a hint of our ultimate calling in Srila Prabhupada's mission. So, above all, absorbing ourselves in the life, teachings, mood, and mission of our beloved founder Acarya, with the intent to cooperatively serve. That's the proper use, that's the proper attitude, the intent to cooperatively serve, is the perfect foundation for making our best contribution to Srila Prabhupada's movement. Now, as singular and selfless as his own life was, when Prabhupada came to America, he had to do everything. He was you could say Brahmana, Vaishnava, Sannyasi, but he had to do everything. He had to clean the toilets, he had to clean up after the first people who came to him. He had to preach, Prabhupada in Scottish Church's college, Prabhupada was, he majored in philosophy, he had a double major, philosophy and economics. Prabhupada knew economics, he knew money. He would quote the economist Marshall, that the impetus for economic development is family affection. If you don't have a family, even corporate culture, they look at somebody, if he's a family person, they're more inclined to hire him because they know he's got an incentive to work hard. Where somebody who's single, not necessarily. Of course, that's changing now with digital this and that, but anyway, that's there. As singular and selfless as his own life was, Prabhupada would be happy simply to see everyone do what they like to do for Krishna. So we're going to look at a purport, famous purport from 1532. Okay, let's look at it. Who's got the mic? You want to read?
Let's be all we can be in our founder Acharya's mission. It does not matter what one is. One must dedicate everything in the service of the Lord. If one is a learned scholar, scientist, philosopher, poet, etc., then he should employ his learning to establish the supremacy of the Lord.
And
similarly, if one is a businessman and industrialist and agriculturalist, etc., then one should spend his hard-earned money for the cause of the Lord. One should try to engage in the service of the Lord everything for which one has specific attraction, and that is the way of peace and prosperity, and that is the remedial measure for all the miseries of material existence.
Yeah. That was, Prabhupada just wants to see us. He wants us to be happy, so we have to be happy. We have to be ourselves. We have to discover ourselves, discover what our real contribution is to Prabhupada's movement. And now we're going to look at the learning outcomes. Okay, Prabhu, why don't you
Lesson 7, finding our mission in his mission, learning outcomes. By now we should be able to recall why Srila Prabhupada appreciated Socrates, identify the greatest responsibility of parents toward their children, Explain the importance of training children according to their particular spirit. Identify the mutual responsibility of the prospective guru and aspiring disciple. Identify 3 ways we can purify our nature to help settle our varna. Identify 3 people we should consult to help settle our varna. Describe the perfect foundation for making our best contribution to Srila Prabhupada's Hare Krishna movement.
Okay. We have a little time. Anybody have any questions or comments in terms of the learning outcomes?
Yes.
Yes, Devarashi Prabhu.
So yes. Hare Krishna. So, what to do when some devotee, especially a leader devotee, have some have a position, but not it is not their varna. What to do?
See, this is the fruit of non-varnashram ISKCON. Upwardly mobile, what do you say? Ambitious, climbing the corporate ladder. That's, and that's, well, over time, that it never works. It never ends happily. When people are just want to be in power. It's not. I mean, Prabhupada, he set the example, servant leader. And even when leaders were in positions, even Prabhupada liked leaders. You know what the Prabhupada's bottom line was for a leader, like a temple president, I'm thinking now. If the devotees under his leadership were happy, not because he was giving them sense gratification, but he was giving them a lot of care, attention, concern, time. There was an example of a leader. Prabhupada visited a certain temple. I'm not going to say the temple, Detroit, and there was a certain leader, and he was well liked by the devotees. And then somebody else came along and complained that the TP wasn't chanting all his rounds. Which is certainly, Prabhupada certainly gave priority to that. And so somehow through some politicking, somebody else became the leader. I think the complainer became the leader. Prabhupada said, "Oh, you can do better." Right. And so he became the leader. But then he became the, we say in English, the young buck. The guy who's gonna clean up everything and set everybody straight and put them in their place. And nobody liked him. So the devotees started complaining about the same people who also noticed that the old leader wasn't chanting his rounds. They realized they had something good in the old leader, even though he wasn't such a proper sadhaka. So then they went to Prabhupada and they said, "Prabhupada, we were much better off under so-and-so." "Oh, why?" "Oh, because he cared about us and we were happier." And then put him back. Who was, why is this going on? Although Prabhupada, gave the other guy a chance. So, our motives, they have to be for service. In the last lesson, it's called Your Srila Prabhupada, we get a look at Prabhupada's, he's presenting what the attitude of a spiritual master is. Here's another side. I talked about a temple president, but somebody who's a guru. Why does somebody want to be a guru? Well, it could be good reasons, for service. to give more people shelter, or it could be, he wants to be the lord of his flock or something, something wrong. But Prabhupada, he gave the gold standard of attitude, which is, he doesn't think he's their master, he thinks he's their servant. That's, we do that to serve, not to be the master. It's otherwise, we're all here because we wanted to be the master. We didn't accept Krishna's authority, so here we are, trying to be our own, hustle our own scene. Now if you happen to be making a reference to something that's going on in France, I don't make comments. I don't get in between the devotees and their leaders, because I'm not living here. I don't know what's going on. I mean, from what I've observed from Lochanananda Prabhu, there he is. He's a servant leader, as far as I can see. He's just trying to, help out. He was drafted too. He told me that Janananda Maharaj was here from, where were we? Australia, right. Where were you in Australia?
I was in Gold Coast, New Moolamba.
Gold Coast, oh, that's a nice place.
Near Govardhan.
Yeah, I mean, the climate's better than here. But he didn't come for the climate. He's not becoming rich, right? As far as I know. I don't know if he's embezzling any money. No, I don't think they're embezzling funds. That would be a scandal because New Mayapur is hurting, right? We're always hurting for men and money. So, yeah, I don't do that. But anyway, can you rephrase your question, or maybe you wanted something else?
Yes, I was asking, actually I remember many years ago, Viraj Maharaj, he was telling me that in ISKCON sometimes we have the position before the qualification. And actually, I see that since in ISKCON, there is a lot of, we can say, misunderstanding or even opposition to the daily Varnashram Dharma. So it means that if we don't study the topics, how can we find our Varna? How is possible? And sometimes...
Or if we have the wrong attitude, like Prabhu was saying, you might just have this... I'll tell you one thing, I can tell you one thing. Because my favorite thing is writing, for years, when I was in ISKCON, I thought, well, I don't want to write anything, because if it's not perfect, then I don't want to be criticized for not being perfect. But you don't become expert in your field, in your calling, by not doing it. Practice makes perfect. I was afraid to write because it wouldn't be good enough. But then Krishna tricked me. Started writing for the Brijbasi Spirit, New Vrindavan magazine, and I started. No, first for the Sankirtan newsletter, and then for the Brijbasi Spirit, and then I graduated to Back to Godhead. So yeah, we can't be afraid to fail. Failure is the pillar of success for someone who is sincere and wants to learn from their mistakes. We don't become perfect. We become perfect by making mistakes, by being. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, from imperfection, purity will come about. Yeah. So, okay. Let's. She already spoke. Let's give her a chance.
Okay, we'll take this chance. I mean, it's not the same subject matter, but it could be also linked. What about the Vaishnava into the Varnashram? I mean, I read Prabhupada speaking about the fact that sorry, even if we have a type of occupation which is fitting our character and abilities, when we are Vaishnava, we should be able to do the needed, in fact, right?
Do the needful?
Yes.
Yeah, that was the slogan, and it still holds true. The needful was referring to emergency work. So when Prabhupada was walking among us, especially in the beginning, it was, this is an emergency. We've got to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world at once. So there's something to, first the position, and then you learn, because Prabhupada was just taking people who weren't necessarily qualified. I mean, GBCs, they didn't know how to be a GBC. Now at least there's a GBC college to start training people on how to actually become the ultimate managing authority, be good managers. And then there's also guru training. What a concept. What it means to be a guru, and how to, what is it, what's the right attitude, and what's the right qualification. You have to be able to do this and that. Yeah, do the needful. It's true, there are emergencies, but you can't always be on emergency mode. Over time, you have to be doing what you're qualified to do, what your nature is. That's why Daivi Varnashram is important. Krishna-centered Varnashram. And that way, then the movement flourishes that way, because everybody's actually round pegs and round holes. They're not round pegs and square holes. They're not. They're right. They got to be right. We have to be, what Prabhupada said, rightly situated. So that comes over time. Everybody has to have basic training, just to know, what it means to be a devotee, chanting Hare Krishna. Prabhupada liked when people learn how to, although I never did, play the mridanga, kukachapati, some basic stuff. The stuff that Prabhupada taught Anatoly in Russian when he had just a few days to train this person. He gave him all, he taught him how to play there was no drums yet, but he knew the day would come, how to play the drum, how to kukachapati, here's the Bhagavad Gita, and you translate this into Russian. So there's basic training, and then there's more advanced. So yeah, do the needful. So the needful now is to build a Daivi Varnashram-centered society. It's been the needful since 1974, but we haven't done it. So we're behind. We're behind the curve. Yeah. It is 9:15 now. So prasad, that's the needful.
Yes.
Can I just say one minute?
Okay, it better be a short German word.
Very short.
No.
About the leaders. I think one reason why we have people who are not, it's not their nature to be leaders, is we set up, at least in Europe, we set up very complicated systems for the old projects, so that you just have to do what you're being told, so you become like a Shudra. But if you want a leader who is higher than Shudra, he needs to have freedom. He needs to be able to do what he wants, and not being told. And if you're being told what to do, you're a Shudra.
That's how Prabhupada started the movement. That's why he wanted all local, he wanted the whole thing to be locally managed. And they're not that some leader comes in and says, you're doing this all wrong, you have to follow what I say, and micromanage from the GBC level. He didn't want that. He wanted people to learn how to do everything locally, and because the local people know what's going on. They're living there. They know what the situation is and what the mentality of the local people in their area are. I'm sure the mentality of the people in what is the Bavarian Forest? What's the name of the place?
Bavarian, the temple, Simhachana.
Yeah, I'm sure the local people in that area are different from the people in Berlin. It's a different mentality of people, right?
Yeah, they do yodeling.
Huh?
They do yodeling.
Yodeling in the forest?
Switzerland.
Well, let them chant Hare Krishna and yodel. Okay, thank you for that comment. So tonight we're going to start the first lesson of Prayojana, which is deepening our love for Prabhupada, and it's called To Love is to Cooperate.
Yes.
Srila Prabhupada,
Jai.
I won't be late this time.